रविंदर सर शुरू करें?
Yes, sir, please start.
Yeah. Good morning to our respected principal sir, Professor Gyantosh Kumar Jha, IQVC coordinator and webinar committee convener Dr. Vinita Tuli ma'am, esteemed guest speaker Dr. Harish Garg, teacher in charge of Department of Mathematics Rajkumar Bhagat sir, faculty members, students and dear participants. I, Anil Kumar Razak, on behalf of Department of Mathematics, ARSD College, welcome you all for the national webinar on what is LPP and why we need it in optimization techniques, organized under the aegis of Internal Quality Assurance Cell and Department of Mathematics. On this occasion, first of all, I would like to thank our Honorable Principal Sir, Professor Gyantosh Kumar Jha, for his constant support and encouragement and for giving us this excellent opportunity to organize such national webinars for the benefit of faculty and students. Now, I request to our respected Principal Sir to welcome our guest speaker and say a few words. Principal Sir.
Thank you, Anil. Today's guest speaker, Dr. Harish Garg, Dr. Vinita Tuli, coordinator IQAC, Mr. Rajkumar Bhagat, teacher in charge mathematics department, Sri Anil Kumar Rajak, coordinator of this program, colleagues and my dear student. It's a pleasure for me to welcome Dr. Harish Garg in this webinar. I am very thankful to him that he has given his valuable time to deliver his lecture on a very important topic for our students. And I hope that students and teachers after this webinar will be enlightened and will definitely enrich their knowledge with his views and his lecture. So thank you so much, Mr. Garg. I congratulate mathematics department and especially Sri Anil Kumar Rajak, who has organized and who has taken initiative to organize this webinar in collaboration with IQAC of the college, in the of IQAC of the college. So, and in recent past, you are organizing frequently webinars and workshops. So it is very good for students and for the institution also. And I believe that whenever you organize and you conduct webinar and workshop and you provide an opportunity to our student to interact with the guest speakers from outside, so they learn a lot. And beyond classroom teaching, it is very required for us to organize these kind of programs so that a student can get opportunity and to learn more and can be benefited from it. So thank you so much for organizing these kind of webinars. And once again, my congratulations to you, Anil. My best wishes to all the organizers. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is my honor and immense pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today's webinar, Dr. Harish Garg. Dr. Harish Garg, working as an associate professor in the Department of Mathematics, Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, deemed university under MHRD, Government of India, Patiala, Punjab. He received his PhD degree in applied mathematics with a specialization in reliability theory and soft computing techniques from IIT Roorkee. His research interests include computational intelligence, reliability analysis, multi-criteria decision-making, evolutionary algorithms, expert system and decision support systems, computing with words and soft computing. He has authored more than 323 research papers, over 275 are SCI, published in referred international journals, and has supervised 7 PhD dissertations. He has also authored 7 book chapters. His Google citations are over 12,580 plus. Dr. Garg is a recipient of the top cited paper by India-based author 2015 to 19 from Elsewhere Publisher. Dr. Garg is the editor-in-chief of Journal of Computational and Cognitive Engineering, Annals of Optimization Theory and Practice. He is also the associate editor for several renowned journals. Dr. Garg got an appreciation from Dean Faculty Affairs, Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala, under the Process of Performance Awards scheme under research category, and appointed as a research advisor by the Nanyang Academy of Sciences, Singapore. He has delivered expert lecture in several mathematical training programs, workshops, conferences, and in refresher courses in mathematical sciences. He has also organized several national and international conferences. We take this opportunity to thank him and we welcome you again, sir. Now, at the end of the lecture, we have some time of questions and answers. If you wish to ask questions, please put up your questions in the comment box of FB page or in the chat box. Now, to start our lecture, I invite our respected guest speaker, Dr. Harish Garg, who will be discussing on the topic, what is LPP and why we need it in optimization techniques. Dr. Harish sir. Harish sir.
Thanks very much, Anil. So I would like to thank firstly Professor Jha, the principal of the institute, Dr. Tuli, that is a convener, Anil, and the Preeti Jain, that is a program coordinator of this event. I thanks to all of you for inviting me to share my knowledge with these young participants as well as the faculty members are there. So without wasting time, let me share my screen with all of you. So is the screen is visible?
Yes, sir. Now it is visible. And sir, your mic is not on.
Mic is not visible.
Sorry, mic camera.
Camera. Okay, okay. Otherwise, bandwidth will be low if I open this video.
Okay, sir. No problem.
Okay. So welcome to all the participants are there. Today we will discuss about what is the LPP. And basically this talk is for the undergraduate students. So I covered the content which the mostly discussed in our undergraduate programs are there related to the optimization techniques as well as the mathematical programming. Myself, Dr. Garg, as the Anil introduced me about that. If you have any doubt regarding this talk or any of the optimization technique subject, you can contact me either of my email IDs there. So what is the content behind this presentation is that we will firstly discuss what is the historical background of this optimization technique, who discovered these optimization techniques and what are the various branches of them. Then since my talk is on the linear programming problem, so we must firstly know about what is the linear function. And second is what is the mathematical programming and what is the single and the multiple variable optimization. Once we cover this basic preliminaries, this is the basic preliminaries of that, then we will try to shift on that why LPP is needed and how it differs from the single and the multiple variable. And after that, we will see what is the role of the convex set in the LPP, how the solutions of this LPP can be made either by the graphical methods or by any of the other methods. And then finally, we will discuss some characteristics of their various methods which are useful for solving the real life problems. So first of all, what is the optimization technique? This optimization problem in operation research is UK, we will call as the operation research, while the operation OR, that is operation research in the US, that is the same thing are there, that's depend on the different countries there. This is basically a branch of the mathematics. And once you are studying the optimization problem, you need these three subjects are there. First one is you need the mathematical modeling. You must know about that what is the mathematical modeling of the problem. You must know about that what is the statistics and how we can solve the problem with the help of the statistics. And finally, based on this mathematical modeling and the statistics, you develop some algorithms and which will help you to find the optimal solution or sometimes it is not always possible to find the exact solution. That's why we call it the good decision. So remember that whenever we are in the field of the educationist, we are always try to find the decision which is always be a unique. Like if I say, if my problem is x square, and if I say what is the value of the x at 4, the answer is 16. So that's a unique solution. That is always be a unique. But what will happen if I say what is the value of the certain function when they are ungiven to you? Like how much person is intelligent? So can a person will always give a unique decision? No, because someone may say that the person is 90% intelligent, someone is say 80%, someone says 100%, and so on. So they have the different options are there. It means the decision is not unique. So in terms of the mathematics, our target is to make a decision which is good in nature as well as unique in form for solving the complex problem. Now, what is the historical backgrounds of this mathematical optimization problem? How this mathematical problem will defined? So all of you heard about the word of the Newtons. That is the development of the differential calculus in the optimization. So all of you have heard in your lower classes, like in the in your BA or in the BSc or in the 10+2. What is the differential calculus? That how you can maximize or minimize the function. You have heard about the theory that you can take the first derivative 0, and then you have to take the second derivative is less than, greater than, or equality. You have to make the decision whether the problem is my maximization or minimization. That is based on the differential calculus. After that, there is a scientist or mathematician called as the Lagrange, which have defined the calculus of the variance, minimization of the functional. All of you heard about the functional are there. That is, if you heard about these, that is the Euler theorem for solving the constraint optimization problem. So this is defined by Lagrange in 1736 and the end of this 1813. After that, you heard about the term of Stokocki, that is a steepest descent method. You had this is the one of the most important steepest descent algorithm for solving the unconstrained optimization problem. Remember that the Lagrange is used for solving this constraint optimization problem, while unconstrained optimization problem is defined by Cauchy, that is from the 1789 to 1857. After that, there is a Euler, that is called as the minimization of the functional, that is called as the functional calculus is there, which is defined by Euler from this to this year. And then you all learned about so many things about the Leibniz calculus. That is how you can calculate the nth derivative of the function. How you can calculate the nth derivative of the function. All of you know about the, like here, if you have the function uv, then you can easily calculate the nth derivative by using nc0 and so on. That is based on this Leibniz RV. So this is basic overview about the major contribution which will help to solve this optimization problem. Now the major thing is that what is the linear programming problem? What is the LPP? LPP stands for the linear programming problem. Now the first thing is about the linear. What is the linear function? So if I ask to all the candidates that what is the linear function, so what is your answer is that? So probably your answers will be like here, a function whose degree is 1 is called as a linear function. A function whose graph is a straight line is a linear function. What is the meaning of that? So might be that someone has another definition, but 90% students have think about that. What is a linear function is whose degree is 1 is called as a linear function. Can you say that? Can you give me one example? Any function? Can you provide me any function whose degree is 1? Whose degree is 1, but still it is not a linear. Is it true? So if it is true, if I say according to this line, what is the meaning of that? A function whose degree is 1, like here, x plus 1. This is a function whose degree is 1. F of x is x plus 1. Degree is 1, so it's a linear. So can you provide me one example whose degree is 1, but it is not a linear function? So how you define that? Can you think about that? If this is true, if if this is true, it means this definition is false. That whatever you have studied in your lower classes about the linear function, this is not the true. Or otherwise, the graph is a straight line. So this is a straight line graph. So according to you, this is a linear function. But what will happen if I draw the graph like here? Is this a linear? Yes, because this is a straight line. What will happen if I draw this line? This is also the linear function. That's true. But the thing is, the major question arises again on here. So look at this function. All of you know that is the mod x is a linear function. All of you know that mod of x is always be a non-linear. So look at that. What is the degree of the mod x? Can you write this mod x function as of this x when x is greater than 0 and minus x when x is less than 0? And you can see that the degree of this is 1. But is it a linear function? No, this is no linear function. So what is this definition? The function whose degree is 1 is called as a linear function, but this is not true in this here. This definition is not true in this case. So what is the meaning of that? It means you must know about that. What is the exact definition of the linear function? How you define the linear function? Similarly, is this function f, that is x1 minus 2 plus 4x2 square, is it the linear with respect to x1 or x2 and so on? You can easily see that this function is a non-linear because of this quadratic term. But if I say, is this linear function with respect to x1? How you define that? So the first question arises in case of the LPP, that is a linear programming problem. Before studying about the linear programming problem, the question always arises that how you define the linear function. How you define. So whenever there is a linear function definition, that is related to the rate of the change. You can see that if the graph is a straight line, what is the rate of the change? 0 always. Is always be a 0. If a graph, or you can say is a constant value. If I say graph is a straight line, it means the equation is my y is mx plus c. So what is the rate of the change? That is my m. So m is my a constant function or constant value. So whenever you are defining the linear function, you always think about the rate of the change. So any function whose rate of change is a constant, irrespective of the domain. Irrespective of the domain. What is the meaning of the domain here? For example, if I say like this, root 3 multiplied by minus of root 3. So what is the answer of this? So someone may think about that it may be of root 12. Someone may think about that it's minus of root 12. Why? Because so what is the right answer of that? Because we know that we are in the mathematics. So answer is always be a unique. So which one is the correct answer? So if you think about this problem as of minus 3 into minus of 4, then it will become as here. But if you think about this problem as root 3 iota, and this is root 4 iota, so this will come you here. But the answer is always be a unique. So according to you, which one is the correct answer? So the answer is what is the right answer is it depending upon the domain. So that's why whenever you are looking about the LPP or any of the mathematical optimization problem, your major thing is thinking about the domain. Like here, what is that? This is nothing but my root of the x. So whenever you are talking about the root x, what is the domain of the x? So if x is in the real number, or x is in the R positive, or is a complete R. So whenever you are talking about the R positive, it means the what is the x is a greater than or equal to 0. Whenever you are talking about the x is a real line, that is from the minus infinity to plus infinity, then you are talking about this complex number. So whenever someone asks you that what is the answer of this, you always ask about that what is the domain of the function. So whenever they are asked that the domain is my real line or domain is my complex number, C is my complex number. So when the person said that domain is my complex number, then the answer will be my minus of root 12, that is like this way. Whenever the domain is my real line, it means iota is not defined. In that case, you have to write this function like this way, because the domain is my real number. So the answer is my here. So everything is depending upon the domain. Same thing for here. So whenever you are talking about the rate of the change, you have to think about the domain. For example, why mod x is a non-linear? Why? So how you can check that whether it's a linear or the non-linear? You have to check the rate of the change. What is the derivative of the mod x? So all of you know that what is the derivative of the mod x is x by mod x. Now I say my function is this. What is the domain of this? So it is nothing is given to you. So what is the meaning of that? Domain is my real line. So whenever the domain is a real line, you can pick any x, you can pick the value of the x from the domain. So since you are the 50 plus student in this parties, in this list are there, so you can pick any of the x from the domain. So someone may choose x as a 7, someone may choose x as say minus of 9, someone may choose x as a 1000, someone may choose x as a minus 10 raised to power 5, and so on, because all these values are satisfied about my domain. So if someone choose as x is 7, what is the rate of the change here? Answer is +1. If someone choose as a minus of 9, what is the answer is that? This is -1. If someone choose as a 1000, the answer is +1. If someone choose as a this, so are they always be a unique? Are they unique answers are there? No. What is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of that? That is the rate of change is not unique. This is not a unique. So anything which is not unique, we called as a non-linear. Like here, if I say my function is x plus 1, all of you know that the degrees 1 is a linear function. But if you think about that, what is the rate of the change? This is 1. What is the domain of this function is? All those real line. So now rate of change is 1. So if you consider x as my 7, what is the answer of the derivative? Again, it's a +1. If someone think about the x is -9, answer is again +1. If you think about this 1000 or minus of the 10,000, answer is always be a +1, because this is independent of the x. So it means the decision is my unique. So therefore, this function is called as the linear. So always remember, whenever you are talking about the linear function, you have to calculate their derivative so that you may check that whether this function is linear, whether this function is linear or not. So you can see the rate of the change of this function mod of x is nothing but x by mod x. And whenever you take any of the value from the domain, it is +1 or -1 whenever x is greater than 0 or less than 0. Therefore, like here, if you choose x is 4, the rate of change is my positive. If you choose x is minus of 9, the rate of change is -1. So that means if the same person choose another x, it may rate of changes decreases. So therefore, we can say as the result changes, so it is a non-linear. So always remember that how you define the linear function is whose rate of change is always be a constant, that's a linear, otherwise it's a non-linear. You can see that. Again, now it's a mod of x, but we have seen in the previous example, this is a non-linear. But that is not depending upon the function. Linear or non-linear is depending upon the domain. So you can see that what is the derivative of this is again here. Now you can choose any of the function from the domain. What is the value of the domain? X is from 2 to infinity. You can choose any of the value. Can I choose x as -3? No, because it does not belong to the domain. So you can choose any of the value like say 7. You can choose any value as 7.5. which must be from the domain. What is the answer of this? It is always be a 1. So is it the unique for all those cases in the domain? Yes. So what is the meaning of that? Mod of x is a linear function. So you can see this is a linear function. So what is the meaning of that? It means this mod x is not always be a non-linear, not always be a linear, that linear or non-linear depending upon your domain. Similarly, you can see that whether this function is a linear or non-linear with respect to x1. What is the derivative of this with respect to x1? That is my 1. That is always be a constant. You can see that is always be a constant. That means this function is a linear with respect to x1. But if you take about that, what is the derivative with respect to x2? What is the derivative with respect to x2 here? This is 8x2. Is it always be a constant? No. Why? Because if someone take as x2 as my 1, because what is the domain of the x1, x2? What is the domain of the x1, x2? They are lies in the R2 plane. So it means someone may choose x2 as a 1, someone may choose x2 as a 3. So if someone choose these two values, the answers will be my 8 or minus 24. They are changes. It means this function f of x is non-linear with respect to the variable x2, while it is a linear function with respect to the x1. You can see this function is a linear with respect to x1, while it is a non-linear with respect to x2, because the rate of the change is not a constant with respect to the variable x2. Similarly, you can see that if I write a function as here, x, this, say. So what is the rate? Is this function is linear with respect to x2? So what is the derivative of this with respect to x2? That is x1 cube. So is it always be a same answer? No, because again, what is the domain of the x1 and x2 is I from the R2. So someone may choose x1 as 7, someone may choose x1 as a 3, and so on. So the answer will be is either the 243 or either as a 227 and so on. So there again changes. So this function is a non-linear with respect to x2. Similarly, you can check that whether this function is linear with respect to x1. So if you take the derivative with respect to x1, you will get this function. Again, for the different value of the x1 and x2, this function is changes. So this function is a non-linear with respect to x1 and x2 both. So once you know about that, how you define the linear function, now you can easily define the linear programming problem. So in order to define the linear programming problem or any of the optimization model, there are the 4 steps are there. Usually we will follow the 4 steps. First one is the formulation of the problem that will basically need about the mathematical model. And then you have to construct the model that is based on your knowledge. And then you have to identify the solution, that is a technique, how you can solve the solution. That is, you have to apply the techniques or you have to develop some methods. And finally, you have to need the testing, that is, you need the statistics are there. So that's why I'm asking the first slide that operation research is basically consist of the 3 subjects. One is the mathematical model. This one, that is this and this phase, is finding the good solution or the better solutions are there. So how you define the better solution? You have to define some new algorithms or the techniques for solving them. Once you will get the solution, how you can say that your solution is better than the others? You have to apply the statistics, that is for the testing the solution. So these are the 3 steps. This is the first step, this is the second step, and this is the third step, which will define your complete operation research methods are there. Now, what is the mathematical problems are there? What is the general mathematical models are there? So we always define a function either in the form of the maximization or minimization, that is f of x, subjected to some constraints are there. So in this function, you can see there are the 3 terms. One is a function f. This x, it may be the real line, or it may be from the x1, x2, and up to the multivariable. So that means your function f is from the Rn to the R. That is called as the objective function. Why it is a R? You can see if I define a function here like x1 square plus x2, what is the meaning of that? The function domain is my R2. Whenever you can take any of the value from the R2, it's a plus sign, so it will give you R. So that is a function is objective. what is the value of the x are there? It may be x1, x2, it may be x1 up to xn, that is a design variable. And it must be that this is the one property must satisfy, there is a one major property must satisfy of the xi's, that they are linearly independent. Why there is a need of the linearly independent? If I say x1 and x3 are the linear dependent, so all of you know that if they are linear dependent, you can write as a linear combination of this. So it means what is the dimension of this? If x1 and x3 are linear independent, it will be my n minus 1. It means now the domain is my Rn, but the design variable is n minus 1. You have to find their number of how many, that is the rank are not same. You get the infinite many solutions. And the third thing is that there's this function g, that is a constraint. This constraint is of the either of the inequality or for the equality are there. What is the meaning of that? Suppose you want to buy a mobile phone. Okay, so what is your objective function? You want to always you want to see the features. You want to say, I want a megapixel camera. I want a megapixel camera to be high. So it means your objective function to be the maximization of the f. F is my megapixel camera. What is the constant is? Definitely the one of the constant is your budget. If you say your budget is up to the say 10,000, you have to look about the camera whose megapixel is very high and the budget is 10,000. Also, you can say the quality. You want to set the quality to be greater than of the 2000 of the unit. You want a mobile phone whose quality is greater than of the 2000. So these are my constants are that is of the either equality or inequality. Once you are defining this, and since there are some constants involved in that, so that's why we call it as the constant optimization problem. If this is not be there, only the function is there, then we call it as the unconstrained optimization problem. Now look at that, any of the function, if I say if the function has a graph of this, you can see this is the minimum value. I can denote this as a minimum as a f. And if you take the inverse of this, you can see this dotted line that is called as the maximum. And you can see this dotted line, this value has the maximum value. I called this as of say g. Can you find the relation between them? So look at that, this is the origin. So whatever the value at here and the value at this, it means this g is nothing but my minus of f. That is the same of thing. You can see this is the function of the minus of f. So this value is here. So can you say these values are same? If I call it, this is my A, this is my B. When they are same, the relation is when A is minus of B. Then only you can say these values are same. So therefore, you can see the minimization of the f is always be equal to the negative of maximization of the, look at that, this is the maximization. What is that? This value is minus of f. This value is my f. This is my minimization. This is my maximization. When they are equal, when this value is same as that of negative of this value, then the answers are same here. So this is the general optimization problems here. Now, all of you heard about this single variable optimization. That is, all of you know that what is the global and the minimum are there. So this is a red color is minimum among, this is local. This is also the local. This is also the local. Why? This is minimum in this neighborhood only. This is minimum among this neighborhood only. While this is a minimum among all those neighborhoods. So that's why this is a global. And you all heard about that, how you can define the minimum and the maximum margin. So I'm not focused much about on that. And you can see that this is nothing but my derivative is condition. So how you define, whenever I ask you that find the maximum or minimum of the function, which first things come in your mind? Whenever I say find the maximum or minimum of the function, the first thing always come in your mind is that you always take the first derivative 0 and then check whether the second derivative is less than, greater than, or 0. Like if I say maximize here or minimize, what you can do is that you have to take the first derivative 0. The answer will be my here. That means x is my 0. Now you have to check whether this function has a maximum or minimum. You take the second derivative, 12x square, and at this point x is equal to 0. What is the answer? Is there 0. So it means if it is 0, it means this is neither the maximum nor the minimum. But that is not true. If you look about the graph of the x4, this is the graph of the x4, and look at the value of the x is 0. This point is nothing but my minimum. So how you define the maximum or minimum are there? So that is based on the necessary and sufficient. So 0 is not neither maximum nor minimum. So it means whenever there is a 0, we need the further investigation. So how you define that? So whenever you have to firstly define the f dash, you will get some point, and then check the second derivatives are there. And you have to find the second derivative until you will get some non-zero element. Like here, if I consider the x4, what is the second derivative is my this. So at the point x is 0, what is the value is this is 0. So since it is 0, we have to compute the next derivative, that is 24x. Again at x is 0, its value is my 0. Again 0, we have to compute next derivative. You have to go until you will get the first non-zero value. Now it is a non-zero. So then you have to look about this function. You can see it is a minimum when the nth derivative, whatever that, is a non-zero. And if this derivative power is even, then the point is minimum. Look at that. What is that? This is fourth derivative, and 4 is my even. It means this x is 0 is my minimum function or minimum point. You can also see, as I discussed the graph of this, x is 0 is my minimum. You can see that. Similarly, if it is odd here, or you can see this, then it's a maximum. Otherwise, you can say it is true that if it is even and this value is the negative, and if this value is negative, then you can say this is the maximum. Otherwise, you can see the neither maximum nor minimum. Look at that, this example. So you can easily find this value here. You can find the second derivative, and you can see that what is the value here. Second derivative at x is equal to 0. This is a 0. It means you can't say that whether it's a minimum or maximum. You have to compute the third derivative, and once you will compute, you can see the third derivative will be non-zero, and this value is my third is my odd. So if once it is odd, it is a neither maximum nor minimum. While you can see the second derivative is a less than 0, so it's a even function, so it's a maximum, and here is minimum. This is all about the single derivative. Similarly, you can solve them with the help of the more than multivariables. Again, you can find the first derivative sufficient condition, as you can construct the diagram, that is a matrix. And then again, you can check that whether the sign of this as a positive or negative are there, and whether it's a saddle point or not. Now the question arises is why LPP is needed. So how you can solve this LPP problem? How you can solve this optimization problem? Can you solve this problem as f dash 0? F dash is a non-zero, greater than, less than. What is the derivative of this function? If I say maximize or minimize this function simply without the constraint, can you find this stationary point here? You can say if you take the first derivative, this is my 4. If you take the second with respect to this is not a 0. This is not a 0. It means once they are non-zero, can you find the stationary point, which you usually did in these cases? You have to solve this one, compute the stationary point, and then check the stationary point whether it's a maximum or minimum. In this case, you are not able to find the stationary point. What is the meaning of that? It means whatever the study you have read in your lower classes, that first derivative 0, second derivative less than, greater than 0, is not applicable in case of linear programming problem. You can see that this problem is linear. Why this is a linear? What is the rate of change with respect to x1? 4. That's always be a constant. Rate of change with respect to x2 is -3. That's always be a constant. It means this is a linear function, and the corresponding mathematical programming problem is called as linear programming problem. So how you define the linear programming, how you can find the solutions of how you find the solution of the linear programming problem, although this method is not applicable. So for that, scientists in 1914 to 2005 defined this linear programming problem, because they analyzed that this method, that is first derivative and that is a differential calculus method, is not applicable. So for that, this GB dentist defined the linear programming problem and defined the simplex method for solving the linear programming problem. Once they will analyze that, later on, this Bellman will define the dynamic programming problem, principle of the optimality, and then Koo and the Tucker will define these necessary and the sufficient conditions for solving the linear programming problem. Also, they define the game theory. So this is the basic features that why we need this LPP problem, why there is a need of the simplex method, because the differential calculus methods are not applicable for solving this one. Another thing is that if I say my function is here, f of x is say 3x1 minus 4x2, for example, and my domain is greater than 0. Is this function is linear or non-linear? So now since it's a mod sign, so it's depending upon the domain. So you can choose any value from x1, x2 greater than 0. Check what is the value of this. Is this always be the same sign? You can see if I choose x1 as a 1, x2 as a 1, what is the value of this inside bracket? It is a -1. But if I take x1 as a 1, x2 as a 0, what is the value of this? It's a 0. So it means the answer are changing. So it means this is my non-linear. So it means this is non-linear. So once it's a non-linear, then you can easily apply the derivative rule. First derivative 0, second derivative greater than 0, less than 0, and so on. Then there is no need to apply the linear programming. Although that's true, you can convert the non-linear problem to the linear problem. You can easily convert the non-linear to the linear problem. I'm not going through that how you can convert, because it's itself a complete lecture are there. But how you can convert the non-linear to linear, once you will convert the non-linear programming to the linear programming, then you can apply the linear programming. Now, so in order to solve this linear programming problem, this dentist will need about the term is the convex set. That's the basic importance about that. What is the convex set? So what is a convex set? You can consider any of the set like here, which is defined here. Take any 2 point in this shaded portion, like say this is my set. Take any 2 point in this set. If you join them, are all those points which are lies on line are lies in the shaded portion? If it is yes, then the set is called as the convex set. Means if I say S is my any of the set, if I take any of the 2 point in the set here, I can join them with their say linear combination. If it again belongs to the same set, then we can say that it's a convex set, otherwise not. Look at that, why it is a non-convex. Take any point in the shaded portion, one here, one here. If you join them, are all the points lies in the shaded portion? Yes. But if you take another points like here and here, if you join them, are all the points lies in the shaded portion? No. Why? Because you can see this blue color shaded are lies outside the shaded portion. It means this is not the convex set. Similarly, if I say my function is say x1, x2 is less than 1. What is that? This is, I think all of you know that what is the function, what is the graph of this is? This is nothing but my rectangular hyperbola. So if you draw the graph of this and this are there. So if you shade them, this is the portion. This is a portion of the there. So can you say that this is a convex set? No, because if you take 1 point here, second point here, if you join them, some points are lies outside the portion. So it means this is not a convex set. Then what is the advantages of the convex set? You can see, if I say if your function is my x square plus x plus 1 here, can you find the zeros of the x? Zeros of the function? You can easily find the zeros of the function. How you can find the zero of the function is x square, you can put them as a 0. You can find the value of the x from here. That is a 2 are there. But if I say my function is this, can you find how many roots are there? All of you know that how many roots are there? 21. Is it possible to you that you can find all those 21 roots? No, it is not always possible that. With the software you can do that. But how you can solve them without the software? How can you find all those 21 roots? It is not possible. So now the concept of the convex set is applicable here. So assume that this is a convex set or convex function. Okay, so what is that? What is the advantages of that? So if the function is a convex or the set is my convex, instead of finding all those 21 roots, you have to find only 2 roots are there. You have to find only 2 roots. Any of the 2 roots are there. So once you will know the any 2 roots, like say x and y are my 2 roots of this equation, then you can generalize them, the value of the others 21 other 19 roots by using of this, provided alpha 1 plus alpha 2 is my 1 and both are my positive. This is the way. If you prove that this is my convex, if this function is my convex function or convex set, then you have to only find the 2 roots, and in 2 root you can easily find that by using the inspection or by using any of things. You can easily find the 2 roots. Once you will find the 2 roots and you have to prove that this is a convex set, then you can find the other roots by using here. You can take any of the alpha 1. You can take alpha 1 as a half, alpha 2 is also be half. You can take alpha 1 as a 1/3, alpha 2 as my 2/3. You can substitute the value here. You can find all those 21 roots, provided this is a convex. Now, how you can check that whether it's a convex or not? Every linear function, because we are talking about the linear, every linear function is a convex set. Every linear function. So you can see that here, this is my linear. If this is my linear, you can see what is the derivative of the x1 is 2. It's a constant, it's a linear. What is the derivative of this is 3. It's a constant, it's a linear. Is this linear? Yes, because the derivative is with respect to x1 constant. This is constant. So it means this is my linear problem. So since it is a linear problem, so it means this is a convex. So what is the meaning of that? Once you know this is a convex, like here, if I ask you, can you find the answer of this? Maximize x1, x2, subjected to x1 plus x2 is less than 1. What is the answer of this? All of you know that this is a convex function, because you can see that linear are there. If you solve them graphically, this is the part. This value is my 0, 1. This is 1, 0. This is 0, 0. And you can see the maximum occurs at here. Maximum occurs at here. Now, since you get the 2 maximum value, so it means there are infinite many values. Look at that. The value at x is half, x2 is half. Again, it will be a 1. This is the maximum value. If you consider x1 as my 1/3, x2 is again my 2/3, answer is again be 1. And so on. You can take x1 as my 0.1, x2 as 0.9. Again, it gives you 1. So it means it consists of infinite many values. So how you can find the infinite many values? So firstly, you have to check whether this is a convex or not. You can see this is a shaded portion. Is this the convex set? Take any 2 points in this shaded portion, join them. You can see that all are lies in the shaded portion. It means this is a convex set. So once it's a convex set, you can take the linear combination of the first value like 0, 1 plus alpha 2 of second value, that is a 1, 0. So you know that how you can solve them. Alpha 1, 0 is 0. This is alpha 2, alpha 1. So it means you can choose any of the value from here, provided alpha 1, alpha 2 is greater than 0. That will be the right answer. So you can see if I choose alpha 1 as a 0.7, what is alpha 2? 0.3. If you choose this as a 0.01, this is 0.99, and so on. So all will give you the maximum answer as a 1. So it means this problem has infinite many solution. So there is no need to find the infinite many solution. Once you will prove that it's a convex set, that you can simply use this linear combination, and this is the right answer provided to them. So this is applicable only when the problem is a linear programming problem and the function and the domain is your convex. So that's the advantages of this linear programming problem over the convex domain. Now, so in general, you can write this convex optimization, convex problem like here. Any of the problem like objective function, like if I say, if I can write here 4x1 minus of the 3x2, I can write this in terms of the vector like 4 minus 3, and here is x1, x2. So I can write as a C, and this is x. This is my constraints, any of the A11 and so on. So in mathematics, any of the optimization problem consists of these three equations. Any value of the x which satisfy only equation number 2, that is this one, we called as the solution. Remember that this is one of the most important things, that whenever you are trying to do some competition exam like NET, GATE, you are asking about that what is the solution and so on. So anything which satisfied only second, that is this one, we call as the solution. Anything which satisfies second as well as third, we call as the feasible solution. And that feasible solution which satisfied here is called as optimal solution. I will give you one example like here. Say 1, 2, for example. You can check whether this is the solution, whether this is a feasible solution, or this is the optimal solution for this problem. You can see, firstly check whether 1, 2, this is my equation number 2. These are the constraints. This is my equation number 1. This is my domain, equation number 3. Can you say this 1, 2 satisfy equation number 2? You can see no. You can see this does not satisfy. It means it is not a solution. If it is not solution, it is not the feasible solution. It is not the optimal solution. Again, you can see, let's say 5, 0. Is this the solution? Check whether this satisfies equation number 2. 5 plus 0 is greater than 2. Yes, 2. 15 plus, that's 2. It means this is a solution. That's 2. Is this the feasible solution also? You have to check whether this is satisfied here also. Yes. 5 and 0 both are greater than or equal to 0. It means this is the solution. This is the feasible solution also. Remember that this is not always true, that whenever there is a solution, it doesn't imply that it is a feasible solution. Look at that example. If you draw the graph of the first constraint, it will be like here. If you graph the second constraint, it will be like here. So if you join them backside, it value is here. Is this the solution? What is the solution is, if it satisfies the equation number 2, you can see minus 3 by 2 plus 3 by 2 is greater than or equal to 0. That's 2. Minus 3x1, that is plus 9 by 2 minus 3 by 2. Is it greater than or equal to 3? Yes, 2. It means this is the solution. Is this satisfy this value? No, because both are negative, but we need both are positive. It means this is not the feasible solution. Once it is not the feasible solution, it will or not always the optimal solution. So that's the difference between the solution and the feasible. So there are the numerous methods are there which you can solve them in the operation search, like mathematical programming. The statistics are there, like calculus method, as I discussed that, linear programming, dynamic, multi-objective, critical path method, game theory, neural network, and so on. All are the part of the mathematical programming. While once you are talking about the statistics point of view, you are talking about the Markov, Quine theory, simulation, reliability theory. But if you're thinking about some statistical methods, then you are talking about the regression models, cluster, design of experiment, and some ANOVA factor designs are there. Again, all these things you can see that they are totally depending on these 4 parameters. Now, all of you know that how you can solve this problem. If you have the 2 problem, you can solve them with the graphical method. But if they have the more than 2 variable, you can't solve them with the help of graphically. So you have to solve with the help of simplex method. So how you can solve the simplex method, I'm not discussing this because that's the theory part, you all knows about that. But what is a major feature about the simplex method is you must have the feasible condition and you must go to the optimality. What is the physical meaning of the feasibility and what is the meaning of the optimality? Suppose, what is the meaning of that? If say you want to buy a mobile phone, okay, what is the feasibility is that? Feasibility is your budget. Okay, what is the optimality means? You select your brand. Say, I want to buy an iPhone 13. Okay, so that's your optimality, that's your goal. Optimality means that is your goal. Whether this is achieved or not, how you can achieve your goal? Definitely, the goal will achieve when you have the sufficient budget. That means when you have the sufficient feasibility. Feasibility here is budget. So when you have the sufficient budget of this iPhone 13, then you may or may not be select this iPhone 13. May say you have 2 lakh budget. Again, it depending upon you that whether you want to buy this iPhone 13 or not. That's depending upon you. But if you have the budget of the 10,000, if you have the budget of the 10,000, definitely you can't buy the iPhone 13. It means you must have the feasibility condition in your hand, then only you can discuss about the goal of your problem. So anything which is talking about the goal of the simplex method that you will study in your theory class. Why we study the simplex method? That is, once you will have the budget, once you have the feasibility in your hand, you look about the goal, you look about your target. So when anything is satisfying these conditions, you look about the simplex method. Like here, like this, all of you know that how you can solve this problem graphically. You have to search about this, I call as O, A, B, and C. How you solve this, how you find the optimal solution? You look about these corner points, you calculate the value of the Z at this point O, this is 0, A point is my 10, B point is my 235 by 19, at the point C is my 9. Which one is the maximum is? Here you will get the required answer here. This is all about the two way. But how the simplex method look about that? In this table, what is the value of the x1? What is the value of the x2? Look about this. X1 and x2, nothing are written. So x1 and x2 are 0. That is, coordinates are here. You are here. What is the physical significance of the simplex method through graphical approach? Now, at this point, you can either move on either this side or you can move either this side. How you know that you can move on which direction? Look about the objective function. Your target is to maximize. So whatever the value of the x1 and x2 you can choose, which will give you the maximum. If I choose x1 as a 1, x2 as a 1, which will give you maximum? This value. Why? What is the rate of the change? With respect to x1 is 5, rate of the change with respect to x2 is 3. So which will give you the maximum? 5. That is x1. So you have to move on here. That is, you have to enter through this one and you can move on this slider way. So what is the value of the x1 from here? This is my 2. What is the value of the x2? X2 is nothing, so it's a 0. So can you find 2, 0 in here? Initially you are here, you move on this side and you can stop at this point. You can also see this point is my 5, 0. but I have to stop at this point. Now again, at this point, either you can move on this side or you can move on this side. So once you will see x1 will be a 0, you can move on this side, and then again you can find the x1 as my 20/19, and this point is there, and this is my optimal solution. So that is, you have the feasible solution, you have to start from the feasibility, because you know that this is a feasible are there, and then once you will move on the optimality, that is, you will target your goal. That is, you can summarize them. Feasibility, again I can say whatever in your hand, and this optimality means in your goal. So whenever, why we use the simplex method in the LPP, that is, when you have something in your hand, like in case of the budget, you have the enough budget to buy something, then only you can apply the simplex method. But on the other hand, what is the dual simplex means? You want to buy, you sure that you want to buy the iPhone 13, whether your budget have there or not. Your target is to buy this phone, whatever the budget you have. Then how you can buy this? Your target is to arrange the sufficient budget. Then your target is to arrange the budget. It means your target is to satisfy the feasibility. These are the two different things. One thing is that once you have the feasibility, that's once you have the sufficient budget, then you can apply, then you can target to buy the iPhone 13 or your goal. Then the simplex method will apply. On the other hand, once you will decided that you want to buy this iPhone 13, it means now how you can buy that? You can only buy once you will arrange this budget. That is, you want to check your feasibility. That's why this is called as the duality. So duality will work when you have the optimality, you are trying to look for the feasibility. Then the dual simplex method, when simplex method is applicable when you are looking for the optimality and the feasibility you have in your hand. And the advantages of this dual simplex is that it can save a lot of the labor, manpower are there, because you have already decided whatever you have, like the difference in here. So this is the simple brief overview about why there is a need of the LPP, what are the different characteristics of the LPP. Like here in the simplex, you have some basic feasible solution, that is, you have your target, you have your budgets, and you have to look for the optimality, that is, you have to look for their goal. On the other hand, dual simplex is that you have the infeasible. Infeasible means that is, your budget is not in your hand, but you have your target is there. Your target is to buy something. Then your target, then you have to look about their feasibility, how you can arrange the money to buy this iPhone 13 and all that. So this is all about this today's presentation about what is the LPP, how you can see in your day-to-day life, and so on. If you want to find some another videos related to this optimization technique, you can simply browse this my YouTube channel, that is the Dr. Harish Garg, and you can find that what is the LPP, how you can linearize. I told you that how you can convert this non-linear to linear, how you can find them another videos. All you can find this on this my YouTube channel, Dr. Harish Garg. If you have any doubts, you can ask me. Till then, best of luck. Thank you, everyone.
My video is visible, Anil?
Yes, sir. Your audio and video both are visible, sir. Fine.
Okay. Sir, if you allow me, can I ask some question raised by our participant?
Yeah, please.
You can also see it in chat box. One student is asking, sir, can non-continuous function be linear?
Yes, non-continuous function be linear. Whether the function is continuous, differentiable, non-linear, that's nothing matter. You have to look about whether the function is linear is all depending upon the domain. function, it doesn't matter whether it's a continuous or not. You have to look about the domain. If the function is behaving as a rate of change is constant with respect to the domain, irrespective of that, whether the function is a continuous or not, the function will always be a linear.
Another student is asking, her name is Jivika. She want to know what can we say for linearity of conditional function?
Linearity of the conditional
Function.
Is the Jivika is present? Conditional functions means?
Jivika, Ravinder ji, can you unmute Jivika?
Jivika, please unmute.
Yes, sir. I wanted to know about the linearity of the conditional functions. Conditional,
What do you mean by conditional function?
like any such condition is given, like say signum functions.
Signum function. Okay, that's the condition. That's, you can say that's a linear function always, because once you take about this, once you take about the signum function, just hold.
Akash want to know.
You can signum function, that is once you will draw the graph and you can look about the domain of the function, you can define the conditional function is also as a linear function.
Another student, Akash, want to know, is there any computational algorithm which is beneficial for us in LPP?
Yes, computational algorithm means, you can say, the computational complexity. So whenever you are talking about the computational complexity, then you always look about the number of the decision variables. As the number of the decision variable increases, so it means the computational complexity is increases, or you can say the big O notation, order of the n will increase. So you have to look about this number of the variables.
Rahul Kumar, he raised a question. Is every polynomial function of degree 1 is linear, but converse need not to be true?
That's, I already discussed, that's a mode of x. Mode x, if you consider about that, if you divide this function as a x or minus x, that's a polynomial. Okay, but it's a non-linear function. So any function whose degree is 1, whose rate of change is 1 constant, is always be linear.
Sir, one question I want to know, we are teaching this paper as skill enhanced course also, and in skill enhanced course we need to use some software to solve LPP problem. So can you suggest some good software which is very user friendly and can be used to solve LPP problem?
One software is the Tora, where TORA, Tora is a software where you can solve this linear programming problem. But that is a ready-made software. You have to input your objective function constants, but the student will not learn much about that, because if you want to learn, student will want to learn what is the programming behind that. So I always encourage them to do MATLAB programming. Ask them to do programming in the MATLAB.
Oh.
Otherwise, the Tora software is the toolbox which optimization, or Lingo. Lingo is also be the software. LINGO. Lingo and the Tora are the two software for these optimization techniques.
Okay, so thank you. One question I also want to know. These days we are talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and neural network. Is there these techniques being used to solve linear programming problem these days?
Yes, it is very helpful. For example, if you are talking about the neural network. So what is a neural network behave like that? You have to assign some weight to your inputs. So it will automatically converts to their linear programming problem, because weights are always be linear. So once it is a linear programming problem, you have to apply the several of the linear programming algorithms to find their optimal weights and their tune your parameters. Otherwise, If you have some non-linear programming problem, you can convert them to the linear programming problem by using some algorithms, and then apply this stochastic process or some other algorithms are there from this LPP.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. There is no more question from participant side. So the time has come to extend my vote of thanks. I am honored and privileged to have the opportunity to give a vote of thanks on this occasion on the behalf of IQAC Webinar Committee and the Department of Mathematics. I personally found Dr. Garg's talk very informative, interesting, and thought-provoking. I express my gratitude and heartfelt thanks to Dr. Garg for giving us valuable time and sharing his experience and knowledge. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our principal, Professor Gyantosh Kumar Jha, who always motivate and guide us to do something new and innovative. Under his ever leadership, our college achieved many successes. I would like to thank IQAC and Webinar Committee convener, Dr. Vinita Tuli, and her technical team for their support and guidance to make this event successful. I must not forget to thank Mr. Anil Kumar Rajak and Dr. Preeti Jain, program coordinator of this event, for planning, coordination, and hard work to make this event a big success. My heartfelt thanks to all the participants across the country who registered for this program and actively participated. I hope today's thought-provoking and enlightening webinar will motivate you to further explore the interesting area of optimization. Last but not the least, I extend my sincere thanks to our students for their cooperation and hard work and providing all logistic support. Finally, I would like to thank you again for making this event a success. Thank you.
And sir, end कर दिए.